Hi, Kathleen. I'm so delighted to have you take out time and attention and share your knowledge and your experiences with all of us with this really interesting conversation about astrology. I know that you are not just a Vedic astrologer, but and of course you're the creator of conscious calendars, but also, you've got a background in Ayurvedic medicine and in traditional Chinese medicine, and also partially in medicine, allopathic medicine. So I think with that really overview perspective, it's wonderful to chat with you about astrology and what influences it really has on our. I want to talk about individual lives rather
Mm.
than like patterns and global, because there's so much going on, and I think a lot of people are just so fed up with looking at the global stuff that it's more now about, okay, how am I going to manage? How am I going to deal with myself and my little life and my community? And if I can manage that, then I've actually achieved a lot, and I think certainly for me and everyday issues that come up, I think that's really important. So one of the things that I like to just chat with you about is, you know there's the polarities of each planet, the sort
Mm.
of negative and the positive. And the reality is that as individuals, we have to experience both sides for wholeness, because according to my understanding, not just of astrology, but of life itself, is it cycles, and we have to complete the cycles individually and community wise, in order to really experience the wholeness, which is what we're here to do, essentially, on this planet, in these lifetimes, in this existence, is to experience that wholeness. So what I would love, to understand a bit more your understanding of this sort of positivity and negative polarities.
Yes, yeah, I'm happy to. I love how you began though, of like, yeah, sure, we can speak of larger patterns, but just like most papers in our cities and towns used to be kind of all local news, likewise, we're much calmer when we actually focus on what's within reach, within view, within our towns, within our life. And so, ironically enough, the answer to this whole completion and what we're really talking about is at some level enlightenment as the larger path, but ultimately, like just experiencing easiness, balance, harmony, all is well. That's a part of that experience of wholeness that you're talking about. Is that yes, there are positive and negative, and do we even want to use the words positive, negative, the
Mm,
polarity, right, of existence itself? And what we're also implied when we're going to be talking about the planets is um, the uh, the the aspects of uh, balance. And one that I like to really kind of quote Marianne Williamson, really, it's sort of like this Tibetan Buddhist thought and Marianne Williamson. If we talk about the planet Saturn, and then I'll go into specifics around like
mhm,
this concept around planets. Well, let me start there. So the Sanskrit word, as you know, for planet is graha.
mhm,
Graha means seas. And what we may or may not realize is that in the practice of Vedic astrology, graha, that the planets actually seize our consciousness. And so there is this pattern where when certain planets are in certain places, we as individuals might tend to experience more of a certain pattern. It's interesting because it's an external thing, and yet it's vibrationally, literally, there's neuroscience to it. Like
Hmm.
Saturn's associated with the amygdala. The amygdala is associated with fear. The amygdala is associated with depressive patterns. Ironically enough, it's the exact right. As you know, it's the opposite of what we think when we look at the science and research. It's like, wait, understimulated amygdala is often associated with the fear patterns, ironically enough, not overstimulation. And so it's interesting to see that Saturn, the planet, is associated with neuroscience, is associated with fear. And in Marianne Williamson's terms and in Tibetan Buddhist terms, what's the opposite of fear? Love and kindness. So when we are in anxiety, like this is the whole thing of what I love about you asking about, like, let's bring it down to the individual. Like, sure, we can talk about the theoretical movements and stuff, but when someone's experiencing nervousness, anxiety, worry, this is why we say take a deep breath. And the opposite is do something kind for yourself, do something kind for someone else, you know, focus. That's often why volunteering for people who are
Yeah,
depressed,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, is a great solution because it's like, stop, like, yes, you do have suffering going on, like, let's acknowledge it. And when we turn and either give kindness to ourselves or kindness to another, this actually is that balance.
That, and also the other part of it is the fact that it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle. So if you've
Mm,
got something that is understimulated and you go in and you volunteer in a community, there'll be others in the community that will overstimulate and then create that balance as a whole community and group experience. And that's why a lot of people, they almost get addicted to being part of a group, because when
mhm.
they're away from the group, they feel much lower and kind of their energy levels go down, etc. And then when they re-engage with the group, they feel again uplifted, and it's that feeling. I completely agree with that. I have a question though about that. Is that what are the signs of overstimulation of the amygdala then?
Well, think of all of your patterns of fear, right? So that it's Saturn's associated with contraction. So Jupiter's expansion, Saturn's contraction. So whenever we're contracted about money, about relationship, jealousy, right? Because on some level, that's a feeling of lack. Someone
Yep.
else has something, right? I don't have, right? So it's very interesting how that pattern actually plays into some people's abundance practices without realizing it. They wonder why they're not manifesting or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
they're actually still caught in that belief pattern of lack rather than, ironically enough, equanimity, having enough is the core of the opposite of that fear and contraction. So yeah, I mean, I associate jealousy as some form with that too. You know, it's contraction in any form. So usually it shows up as anxiety, but like each person's fear shows up in a different area of their life because we all have different karmas, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, so other ones, let's see, what else would, are there other words that come to you associated with
Like
like,
euphoria, would that be a sign of overstimulated amygdala?
ooh, hmm, good question. That's almost no. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think because of our medical background, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like my brain goes to immediately like, huh, is that more manic depressive? No, I mean, because euphoria I associate more with Venus and Jupiter because Venus is associated with bliss, right?
Right.
So this is you have this pear that is perfectly ripe. We cut it, it's juicy, we eat it, it's like perfect, like having a perfect mango or a perfect pear. Like that is bliss. We are meant to have that. That's a positive karma,
Mm-hmm.
literally the fruits of an experience. And it can be either in singing. Now, Addiction is another thing, but Venus can be associated with that too,
Yeah.
right? Sugar
Yeah.
addiction, the high we get from sugar, the high we get from other things, that's just an imbalanced Venus that might be associated with this energy called Rahu.
Mm-hmm.
But right, so I would actually say bliss in a balance, euphoria in a balanced form is actually, again, something that's meant to be ours in a positive sense, right? Altered state is supposed to be part of our experience.
I actually meant euphoria in terms of delusional euphoria.
Ah, delusion. Well, I'd say that's
Yeah,
Rahu.
that's
Rahu, hands
Rahu.
down.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
That. Mhm.
Interesting. Because I know that Saturn, Shani, is our exit gate from our, karmic cycles. And, if you've kind of gone through that, and that's really, when you mentioned earlier about enlightenment. I think when you start exiting Saturn, which means that you've completed your cycles, Saturn releases you from its hold, the graha, as you said, and
Mhm.
it then you feel liberated. And that feeling of liberation is actually also enlightenment, because it's like, oh my God, I've been released now. I've done my karmic patterns and I've neutralized them, and I've completed whatever I'm supposed to learn, at least to some level. But I can now I have the choice to come back and share and help others and support others. So that's a different form of Saturn, though. It's not Saturn
Yeah.
pressurizing you. It's Saturn actually saying, you know what? I'm here to support whatever you want to do because you've already been released.
Oh, I love this perspective. I'm going to kind of sit with something you said. What I caught at the very beginning, though, is Saturn. It's true, Saturn's associated with death, but Saturn, like when we're talking about that negative side, which is fear, but it's equanimity. So
Mm-hmm.
it's meditation. It's uh, it's healthy science, we could say. It's dealing with facts, right? And so Saturn is very pragmatic
Mm-hmm.
and very, ascetic, living extremely simply. Again, if we take a look at the life of the Buddha, who was a Hindu, um, people forget he did lots of meditate, like a
Mm-hmm.
huge chunk of meditation. And that is this reality based, hmm, take things as they are, all is well, evenness of like, this is so. This is the groundedness that Saturn can bring when we meditate, when we experience theta healing, alpha brainwave states, which we can experience alpha brainwave states in exercise too. And ironically enough, Saturn sometimes is associated with discipline as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this interesting play with meditation being really one of those pathways. We've got lots of pathways to enlightenment, and per your point, completion in each of them. So we could say like a whole series of discipline and meditation is one of those completion cycles with Saturn that then allow, rather than a fear of things, a fear of death, a fear of what is, it's like, this is so. It's just an evenness. Yeah. And that's that equanimity that comes with the balance between the two, and that um, realization. And that begins that foundation for the release, that Venus is the bliss that is something that is also meant to be yours. Like we're meant to embody all of these.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Do you think, though, that there's this huge surge of mental health? Do you think it's actually mental health? Or do
Mm.
you think it's actually influences that we may just find overwhelming?
It's a combination. I do think that there have been hidden mental health issues for hundreds and thousands of years,
I agree
really.
with you. I agree.
Yeah, right. Like
I
in certain societies, it's been a little more balanced, but you know, pre-patriarchy, there was matriarchy, right? I
right.
mean, the foundation of the nakshatras and the lunar mansions is matriarchy, everybody. This was pre-sun houses, a sun every house. That's masculine energy. The
Hmm.
nakshatras are all feminine power, Shakti. Okay. It's like, it's this interesting path again to wholeness as okay, I'm going way out here. I'm connecting all these things of like, just let it wash over you, everybody who's listening. Like, so the rotate the the North Pole of the Earth circumscribes a circle every 26,000 years.
Yeah.
So our North Star actually goes to a different place every 26,000 years. And in these cycles, there's even cycles bigger than that, as you know, these things called yugas.
Hmm.
But that circumscribing of the North Star, we go through an entire cycle, and it's actually moving from matriarchy to patriarchy back to matriarchy
It's
is our
also
natural.
it's also an assimilation of the layers. So it's not dominantly patriarchy. It's also mixed in with different layers of uh, patriarchy, and then it flows the other way, and then it's dominant patriarchy with, layers of. So it's like a pendulum, but it's all mixed in because of
Yeah.
the multidimensional aspects of the planets and their influences as well.
And then, right. And then we as individuals are existing at a certain time, and then we are
Yeah,
having our own actualization, right? So we're all part of the game, you know? So I didn't mean to kind of get
I know,
off
I
topic.
know.
I brought it in terms of, because your original point was around, or your question was really around, what was it around? What made me go to the patriarchy with the cycles?
Um, I can't
We're being
remember.
so classically, right? We're like, wandering our way there. I love it.
It was the pendulum, it was the balance, it was the harmony, the neutral point. It was, I think we kind of were trying to
We'll find our
focus
way.
on that. Yeah,
We're going to
we will.
integrate that, though. I know it's going to come back,
Of
where we
course.
started with that. Yeah, totally.
Of course.
Um, so, uh, but the lived experience of completion of cycles, but in the now, we are meant to kind of what you had brought up before we were speaking is in the now. Life isn't just about trying to seek only the goodness or the positive side
Hmm.
of things or the positive side of karma, that it is this balance that it is ironic that it's through suffering that we often make much more headway
Yeah.
in both our spiritual path, our personal evolution, whether you want to say it's your spiritual or religious experience. Like, um, one of my teachers always said, well, you don't turn to God when you win the lottery.
Yeah.
Like, people don't go, ooh, I'm going to go like pray and ask for support when they win the lottery, right? When gobs of good stuff happens or appears to happen, right? Because there's plenty of lottery winners who are miserable 10 years later, right? So, like, watch what you seek. But that illusion, or the desire to have something other than what's happening, or the thinking that, oh, if this experience, this form of suffering, this feeling, physical pain, emotional pain, were gone, then I'd be okay, I think is a classic pattern versus when we go through something. And this is where you and I have talked about this before, the daily practices, like be it sun salutation or
Hmm.
meditation, personally mantra. Like, mantra is the bomb. Like, it does so much in experiencing and shifting patterns, mental patterns. Oh, your question was about mental health. Shifting mental patterns, psyche, outlook, and bringing personally me to just this place of neutrality, or being able to seek love more easily or kindness more easily. Each of the mantras have a slightly different vibe, but the Shanti mantras bring the peace that I think is at that core. Your question was around mental health. Like, do we really have an epidemic of mental health? And I think, per your point, you were implying, so jump in around, hello, technology. I mean, technology is so much of this overstimulation, the ability to for people to be scrolling. It's like a mini Vegas, right? The
Mm-hmm.
lights are just right. They keep you in this like state, and that's why that spending time on social media is so bad for mental health,
But
right? Even
Kathleen,
if you're
I agree with that, but I also, going back to your point about the Shanti point. So the more you get further away from the Shanti point, is the
Mhm,
more you go into sort of chaotic mental thought forms. And I
yes.
think, honestly, one of the things I feel very strongly about is not suffering as much as struggle is very
Mm,
good because it
yes.
creates resilience. It creates more experience. It allows the body and the mind to become stronger and to have more data that it can then use for the future. And I think that technology is another discipline,
Mm,
self-discipline for us to be
mm,
able to say, okay, this we know is taking us away from our Shanti point.
mhm.
So it's good for a while. And then we have to have the self-awareness and self-discipline to say, okay, you know what? Enough. Now I need to come back to my Shanti point and just chill.
Mhm.
So in that way, technology is another, I think, great tool. And it's more
It is.
subtle. It's more
It
subtle than what we've got in the material realm.
Mhm. Yes.
So
Oh,
it's honing
completely.
us, it's honing our skills.
Well, and technology is associated with Mercury.
Mm-hmm,
So Mercury is the planet of communication and of our nervous system.
mm-hmm.
So there's a reason that technology kind of throws our nervous system off. And yet, when applied in certain ways, could potentially shorten our work week. And, it's given us like, we're not working the hours our grandparents worked,
Right.
waking at sunrise and working until sunset. And in summer, that's a very long 12-hour day, often manual labor, right? So, because most of the world have been farmers until recently.
Yep.
So, right, because you had to grow your own food. So that's ironic that the Mercury and honestly Rahu is what often brings the industrial revolutions,
Yes.
right? And again, what so if we're talking about this play of like that balance where we can use technology to you and I are meeting, you know, it,
Absolutely.
countries apart here. Our time zones are 12 and a half hours apart. So, you know, it's letting us have experiences and then someone being able to watch this on replay. Like, oh, I'm just so thankful. Like, it's such a blessing to be able to use things in this way, to have these friendships across the globe. I mean, it's so beautiful, isn't it? Like, there really is an upside.
Yeah, but see, Kathleen, there, the focus is on the friendship. It's not the focus on the technology. The technology is a tool to enable us to have that. And I think that's what's really missing in the equation is what is your intention and what is your objective? And that's
Yes.
where people do not have the clarity that I think is required, where there's so much fear mongering and conspiracy about technology. It's just if you
Mhm.
know what you want to do with anything and you know
Yes.
your objective is to enable this friendship and share it rather than
Mm,
focus on, hey, isn't it great? And I can do the technology. I think that's important for people
yes.
to understand.
Oh, it's beautiful because even with you just saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. I don't set intention before I go into social media. I mean, sometimes I do. I'm just like, oh, I'm going to check this one thing. And that's when I can be really laser focus, get in, get out, right? Kind of thing. If I'm just checking something and going, oh, hi, oh, connection, yay, you, oh, yay, you, love, love, right? But per your point, like, what is the intention?
Hmm.
And that I think is this beautiful lesson that you just brought up for me is like, wow, even in our micro, like I'm a believer in micro practices. So that micro practice, like even if you think you're only going to do something, open the email or check something, check in, set an intention. And that's also, again, I think a form, discipline's not a sexy word for a lot of people,
I
but it is.
know.
Yeah. In this case, we could call it what? Focus, supportive, supporting focus, you know, expanding outcomes, because it does expand outcomes when we set an intention,
Yep.
right? And set what outcome we would like to see, not necessarily having that expectation, but
Hmm.
what we're going in with the intention.
Yep.
So be it social media or checking email or writing a poem or
Right.
stepping outside. Yes. And that level of awareness is so beautiful that then I think it brings a deeper, rich, more rich experience.
I agree with you. And I think people overlook the real value of small acts. We
There,
do these acts all the time throughout the day, throughout even while we're sleeping. And we forget that this is life. This is really what it is.
it's
It's
the
not
string.
about the big, having the big car, having the big house, having the big holidays. It's really there's a saying, it's in Hindi and
Mhm.
also in Turkish. And it's like the in Hindi, it's called God is in the details.
Yes.
And in Turkish, it's the devil is in the details,
Oh, right. Isn't that? Oh, yes, right.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I know. I did say that to someone the other day, the second one, and it's just like, yeah, the like God is in the details and the micro focus
Hmm.
in setting intention before we take a sip of water, you know, everything just holding our food before we eat it and blessing it. Like these micro practices are the rich stuff of life. That's our path to enlightenment is
Exactly.
again not going over expansive, but coming back and saying, okay, I'm going to do this micro practice. And when I leave, I'm going to nod and say hello to my neighbor. And it comes back to these like simple everyday things that, when linked together, become the totality,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
My making sure I took my trifala, with warm water before meeting with you, like just
Hmm.
all those little things.
No, but they really count. They count so much. Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you. I hope we will have a follow-up conversation, and maybe we can continue based on your time and schedule.
I would love
But
that.
me too. I think this is I mean, it's enriching. I find these conversations very enriching.
I
Like
love
we just said, the small parts, the little, the 35 minutes in our
it. Mhm.
day, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Kathleen.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just so appreciate our friendship
Me
that
too, me too, me too. And I hope it continues.